All right, welcome back to the 1% Baseball Podcast number 23 from the 1% Studios here in Spring Branch, Texas. We've got a special treat for you guys today. We've got Christian Hernandez, the new strength and conditioning coach for the Tribe. He will be up and running here before the end of the, I guess at the end of the spring, start of the summer.
June 1st.
So we've got some good stuff to talk about today, but before we get into it, Sean, Garret, how you doing?
Doing great. Just got back from Houston. Living the dream, man. Had a great weekend in Houston. Obviously, got to play some good baseball. A lot of teams down there. 756 teams. Huge tournament. It was just good baseball to watch. So we had a good weekend. Glad to be back.
Yeah, I saw a lot of driving. I think it was, hour and a half to some of the fields. Yeah, it was all over the place.
20 hours of drive time this weekend.
Yeah, Gassville ran up this weekend. But no, it was fun. We got to see some improvement, and it's always fun just to go see new baseball, right? And for a lot of these teams, especially the 13s and stuff, is that going over to Houston is some better competition and different competition than any of them have ever faced before, right? So it's good just to put them out there and see kind of who rises to the occasion and who doesn't, so to speak. So it's always good.
I don't know why this is, but Houston fields are just way better than San Antonio baseball.
So nice.
So
nice.
if anybody wants to come and invest with us and build some sick-ass fields in a stadium here, it'd be nice. We played in Rosenberg for the 13s. Complex was sick. Full turf, concrete complex. Like, it was...
Well, that Premier Field was badass.
Premier Field's incredible.
Premier's like the top of the line for that whole area.
We get to play there for the high school guys a bunch. We played there, 3 times last year?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
But even before it was night, fields were beautiful, man. Nice. Good job. For natural fields.
Yeah,
Stop.
we can I guess agree to disagree on that.
It looked like Garret Field out there. Come on now.
Yeah, well, without we'll get into it.
We've seen better.
So, but it's awesome that we're going to be talking strength and conditioning today because I was talking to my buddy Joe Lopez. He plays for the Lone Star Majors team, 13U, and they ran into a team called the Motor City Mud Dogs, right? And they were also at a team in the Majors bracket. But apparently that team flew in. They had a field rented. They did an hour and a half of cardio, 2-hour practice the day before they started their full games.
Really?
So,
where are they from?
Motor City,
Detroit,
Michigan.
Yeah, interesting.
And so, nothing against us, but our parents were fucking getting after it and having a good time, and boys are running around grabbing ass in the hotel room, and those other kids ran their major team. I don't know the makeup of the squad. I think he ended up winning the whole thing for the 13s, but it was a business trip for those folks.
Yeah.
They came in there ready to fucking get after it.
Yep. I mean, it's important, at the end of the day, it's preparation. It's the same thing in college baseball, man. Like, they don't show up an hour before the game and you just put their cleats on, put their pants on, and do some bands and hey, let's go. But it's not what it is. I mean, when did you show up to the field for game day? I was different because I pitched. So
we had a 7:00 game. I mean, you're there 2:33. Go do your early work and then hop in, shower, go get dressed and stuff. So it's a long day. And I think for me, when you look at the strength and conditioning thing, aside from just the development of the baseball player, right? One thing that I found is it just keeps your legs under you. Because I think a lot of these high school guys are going to see this summer, they've already experienced it. You go to these tournaments in Houston, especially the one in Atlanta, it's a lot of baseball, right? Thursday to Sunday, it's a lot of baseball. And then you add practice on top of that. And, the window in the summer is so much smaller, right? Just in terms of, how much time we have to get all these tournaments in. So it's bang, bang, right? It's a lot. Especially with the guys that train with us, right? So, they come in and, the last thing you want is by week 3, their legs are dead, right? And they have nothing left in the tank, and that's the last thing you want, right? So I think a lot of them from the strength and conditioning side are going to see just how well they're going to be able to stay and keep their body in preseason form. So
kind of going to those guys, showing up a day early, whatever it was, and doing cardio and then 2-hour practice, it was the same thing when we would travel. So, when these teams travel, I think a lot of people probably know this, but if you don't, when college baseball teams are traveling, you, for a weekend series, right? Midweek games a little bit different because you just show up, 4 hours before you start your stuff. It's still early, right before game time. But especially your midweeks, or excuse me, your weekend series, you're leaving Wednesday or Thursday. You're getting in Thursday afternoon. And once the home team has finished practice, we're out there practicing. It's usually BP, usually for the pitchers, a lot of like, I'm not going to say calisthenics, but like moving the body, you know what I mean? But they're there a day before, and they're doing stuff to prime the body so that when we show up Friday, we're not stiff legs, starry eyed, and like just waking up, getting ready to go play a game.
And the next thing we used to do, when I got to UTSA, it was a little bit different because of COVID, and that obviously changed the landscape of everything. But like my junior year when I was at UIW under Hallmark, when we would get there on Thursdays, we would wake up, we'd have practice Thursday night. When we woke up on Friday, we would go do a lift at their facility. And it wasn't anything like super max, right? But it's just in there, like get the body moving, get your legs under you so you're ready to go. More of like an activation, like we were talking.
We were just talking with Christian a second ago. It was like, guys, he had said, like, you know, we were just talking about the landscape for the summertime, like talking like weekly setup, like, you know, if guys were to come in after a weekend, like Monday, we're going to get after it. Tuesday's your recovery day. Wednesday, we're going to do like a feel-good lift right before we go out Thursday and go travel to play for the summer, right? Guys would be showing up Friday to the lift because I would always go, even when I was coaching or helping out, right? I would get on the bus and go with them to the lift. Like we got our starting center fielder, starting right fielder, like just banging out curls, you know what I mean? Like looking at him, yeah, he's like he's making sure he's got his pipes ready to go, so his jersey's filled out, you know. But it's just a feel good lift. Just get him going, prime the body, you know, wake it up. Make sure we're ready to go for Friday's game.
Well, let's get into it, Christian. I mean, welcome, first of all. Glad to have you here. I mean, give us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, and then I can jump right in and talk about what you do on the game day to help your guys.
I appreciate y'all having me here. You know, it's gonna be fun. You know, Christian Hernandez, that's my name. You know, just recently going to be getting out of my master's degree, so you know, gripping and rolling.
Congrats.
I appreciate it. Other than that, like, you know, started out at UTSA really with the.
Where'd you go to high school?
Stevens. I went to Stevens in San Antonio, so I'm actually from here for the most part. You know, I went to UTEP for a little bit actually, played some football, but you know, ultimately decided UTSA was the way. You know, one thing led to another. You know, strength and conditioning came my way, and I was like, man, I'm all for this. This is fun.
And you actually play volleyball right now, right?
I do, yeah. So, you know, I mean, I guess like with the Title IX stuff and everything, UTSA doesn't have like that men's volleyball stuff. So you know, the club's the only way to go. Still fun, you know, I enjoy it. Just trying to get my last second athletics in before, you know, getting there to that old man stage.
What position do you play in volleyball?
Play middle, so it's like middle hitter, middle blocker, whatever.
Come on now.
Yeah. On, man. You know,
all the kills, huh?
Yeah, you know.
Basically
you
a
know,
shortstop.
Yeah. You know, gotta be the leader. So, but yeah, you know, started at strength conditioning early, actually my senior year with this guy named Brayman McClinton, who actually used to work with the Spurs.
Yep.
So I was actually really fortunate enough to learn a lot of that from him. Then kind of decided to go into that UTSA piece, and you know, I just hit the ground rolling there. You know, you know, I've learned a lot from a lot of the coaches there. You know, Esteban Doria, you guys know well, Dexter, Molinaro, Ryan Philo, all those guys. You know, and then of course just learning from all the other coaches, even online. You know, like a big guy that I like watching is University of Delaware, Coach Stefano. He's that dude rips and rolls with his baseball team and softball team, so he's really good. But you know, kind of been working with everyone there at UTSA, but my main role over there was baseball. You know, I fell in love with those guys. I think they fell in love with me. I poured into them as much as I could. I saw them as more than probably my family half the time I was there. You know, there at 5 a.m. with them. You know. And then getting after it, so...
We'll talk a little bit about that, because the brand of baseball that UTSA plays, obviously, we're sort of in that vein, and I think you're seeing a lot of these smaller schools really adapt to that scrappy, hard-nosed, steal-in-the-base type baseball. What goes in, or what have you learned about training to that style of baseball to, you know, to keep these guys, whatever it is, fast, quick, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so a lot of the times what we did there, I mean, it was kind of all dependent on, of course, what we felt was most needed for the guys. A lot of those guys already have that general strength, you know. I mean, you guys, like, you know, we had guys that were squatting, deadlifting 400 plus pounds, you know, ripping and rolling, but, you know, you get to that nitty gritty stuff about that power, and then even like our small movement things, like there's some guys who like just don't get it, you know? So it's like learning all about that. It's just really tailored to kind of like the general overview of the team rather than having that individualized. Now, of course, like we had like our hitters and pitchers lift, and of course those were more individualized because of the way we just did it there. But, you know, just like the general overview, it's all about getting, you know, that power, getting fast twitch, you know, making these guys as best that we can be.
Yeah. So for me and for the listeners, like, obviously we've been a part of it, we've seen it. Just talk to them. Why is it different from a hitting perspective and a pitching perspective? Just like in your eyes, like when you were, you know, programming dudes, like what would you program slightly different for a hitter versus a pitcher?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of things that we kind of do. Of course, like, you know, we really try to protect the arm for sure. You know, like that's a big no-no for a lot of the things. So you're not going to really see a pitcher bench 315, you know, going full throttle with that. You know, we kind of tailor that around to where maybe we're doing something single arm wise. Maybe we're even doing like a light dumbbell bench or even a floor press. Just something that we're kind of almost ensuring ourselves that we're not going to hurt these guys and they can perform, of course, to the best of their abilities. You know, and for pitchers, of course, they're so different because you can have a guy throw a bullpen maybe Wednesday and then all of a sudden they're pitching Saturday or Sunday, you know. So it's all just about how they feel. Because at the end of the day, if you're not feeling the best, you know, then you're not going to perform the best, you know. So if you got to talk to me and see like, all right, hey, like I'm kind of feeling sore in my legs, you know, like this and that. Like, okay, like let's work around, like, you know, let's make sure that you're in the best shape that you can be physically and maybe even mentally with that. So, you know, the pitchers and hitters, they're going to have overall the same general things. Like, you know, we're really focusing on power today or, you know, just like our overall strength day. But like at the end of the day, you got to modify it to where it's going to be the best of their capability.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, we're no workload, right? So a pitcher might throw a bullpen on a Wednesday and then throw a real game on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. How do you plan for rest? And does rest mean no work or is it light work? Or what are you doing during the season to maintain but also not wear yourself out?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, there's a lot of things you can do. I've always seen some guys that actually just take days completely off. I know at UTSA, what I really liked, what I adopted is when a guy would like maybe pitch on Wednesday, they would come in either right after or that morning and we get that activation lift or something to at least help stimulate those muscles to at least alleviate some sort of stress rather than just leaving that tension build up all the way up and then maybe they're still having that on Saturday. So
I think that's huge, and I think that's what a lot of people need to hear. And it's kind of what we talk about too, from just a workload side from the baseball perspective, because it's two different pieces. They go hand in hand, especially when you have both pieces. But for me, it's like if guys throw, and this is why I think guys are getting injured so much nowadays, is we're playing a ton of baseball, but it's very sporadic. High volumes of workload on specific days. But then the time in between that is nothing. They're not doing anything, right? So I go out and throw a 45, 50 pitch bullpen on a Tuesday or Wednesday. And then I don't do shit for Thursday, Friday. And then I might throw a little bit Saturday. And then Sunday we get banged out with 90 pitches. But yeah, dude, you're going to be sore as shit.
Yeah.
Because your body's never recovering. So like, I think the key quote that Christian just said is like stimulating the body. Right, like stimulating the muscles, not in a manner that's like I'm stressing the muscles more, but I'm stimulating so that recovery starts to happen, and my body is always being primed for my next performance or my next outing.
And it's funny you say that because it's like when I look back at like the best players that I played with in college, they were the ones that were always in the weight room. Right, and again, just like you said, it doesn't always have to be like a max effort lift, but it's in there like more than everyone else, just getting in there and activating. Even if I'm feeling a little bit sore, maybe I do an extra long like activation or movement prep just to get my body back to where it's going to be optimal to be able to play.
I watched the F1 and then that Full Swing, I think it's called Full Swing or whatever, the Netflix documentaries on one's on F1 racing and the other one's on golf right now, PGA. And it's crazy how those guys, you know, they're athletes as well, right? And they're not baseball players, but the second they're done with their round or their race, the first thing they do, I guess after they get a meal, they're back working out, they're stretching, they're doing stuff, they're doing what I thought was fascinating. They're doing a bunch of mental stuff, like acuity stuff, reaction stuff, just to kind of stay sharp. It's like, damn, guys just played a game. For the golfers, they're going to have another deal tomorrow, but they've got a routine and they're trying to, I guess, they even though they're on a Friday or Saturday, they're still trying to peak on Sunday. It's like, holy shit, these guys they're working hard.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important, like, you know, to keep your body, like, you know, under, not necessarily under constant tension or pressure to where you're pushing that and you're just crumbling yourself, but, you know, you got to have something every day to where maybe even if it's just an active recovery day or stretching or something, because, I mean, the more you sit around, the more your body goes right back to
tight.
Yep.
I think that's where guys kind of individualize, find themselves, right? Especially with these older dudes where they're playing a lot of baseball. It's like, hey, maybe I'm a guy that benefits more with like the day before I get in there and squat, right? To like ensure I'm getting active in my legs. Maybe another guy just needs to get in there and foam roll the shit out of himself, right? And just whatever it is, and start to individualize it and figure out what works best for them.
I loved like day of the game, getting in there and like having a full lift, like getting after it. The day I was pitching, the day I was starting, the only time I really ever started in college was in junior college, but like that's whenever I loved it the most. Like when I knew I was throwing, I would be making sure my pregame routine was getting in the gym and like having a full body lift, like pretty aggressive too. Because for me, it was just like, it got me going. It was ready to go. Like some would say like, oh, you're doing all that before the game. It's like, yeah, like I need to. Because if not, like my headspace isn't right. My body doesn't feel right. Like I don't feel like I'm ready to compete today. So talk a little bit about, kind of segue into this, is like, talk a little bit about in-season versus off-season. Like just on an overview side, like what are the differences that you're trying to do within the time of year? Like what is different about that? Is it the same? What if there is differences? What are the differences that you see during that?
Yeah, so we actually kind of do it a little differently. I think we're to where, since of course we're going to be playing in the summer, like a lot of these guys are going to be anywhere between 12 to 18, so it's kind of different for these guys. But like in season versus off season, what you would typically do for an in season, you're just kind of maintain some stuff. Like, you know, you're not necessarily maintain, but either maintain or increase power, strength, whatever it's needed, just for that, because like we talked about, you're moving all the time. You're there 7 days a week almost. You have to do something, whether that's just stretching or maybe even getting extra lift in. You know, we had a lot of guys sometimes, instead of our 3 days lift, they would come in on that Saturday and come lift, just do whatever they want. But, you know, for an off season, you're trying to develop everything you can. So like from from general strength to getting that peak power, velocity, anything of that sort. So, you know, we kind of tailor that to making sure the athletes get their best to whatever is needed for that. So
yeah. Well, so you're going to have that lift program here in the summer. What's the idea? Do you already have some thoughts on how you guys are going to put that together and what you're going to focus on?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, I would, like we were talking earlier, there's going to be guys all at different levels, you know, guys who don't know how to squat at all, or guys who can, you know, throw some weight around. So it kind of just all depends on what these guys are doing. Of course, we're going to see from a very beginning, maybe like even like a functional movement screen. That's kind of what the basis is, just seeing maybe how they squat with the PVC pipe, how they do like certain movements. This is all it is. But, you know, like the very general, you know, the first 1 or 2 weeks is going to be, you know, our mobility, change of direction, all that stuff with our strength involvement, you know, just making sure that these guys are well prepared in getting to that next level to where we can actually start even some basic movements, or maybe even more complex depending on how well these guys are.
So it'll be like an intentional design, like is it for the individual?
Yes. So what we're going to try to do is, once we start getting the list completely full, then we've already been kind of tinkering with putting, just like, we don't know, right? Sean saw these guys in the weight room a little bit last summer, but like the guys on the teams, right? Because we expect a lot of those guys will be training with us. They're the most of the dudes that have signed up. But he saw it, but we were at Planet Fitness, and it's very generic lift. Like, we're just trying to get these guys in the weight room because they're scared of it. I don't know why, but dudes are just scared of the weight room, right? So we just wanted to get them in there. But I think what we're trying to do is kind of evaluate, like, okay, this guy is obviously stronger. This guy is not as strong. Trying to put guys kind of tailored to a group that would fit them. But even kind of like what we see is like, so for parents too, is off season for some is in the summer and fall, right? Like the 13s and the 14s and anybody below that, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. most of those guys are going to be in off season once the summertime hits, once they finish up, right? And their off season will basically roll all the way through the fall, because fall is still off season. Like if you're not playing as much and it's a little bit lighter, it's pulled back. Now, obviously, some play football, right? Mm-hmm. So there's some kind of work that you have to do like that. It's a lot more for us just because we're in the private sector. But I think, yes, the answer is it'll be tailored to the individual.
And I ask that because as a parent, right? We're always looking for ways to, what should I have my son or daughter doing? What can I do to help them? First of all, stay active in the summer. Number one, right? Just don't be a couch potato. But what can I do to help them? What kind of development can we do to help them with their sport? If it's dance for my daughter, or baseball for my son, or soccer, or whatever the case may be, what can they do? Because there's so many of these youth fitness spaces that are open up, and at the end, and we've tried a couple, and it's really just like daycare. I mean, they look, it's like PE class, right? I'm not saying it's not worth it, but it's not helping the goal of my son or daughter. We go to Tony at Tetrad. He's got a specialized plan for bubble and stretching and stuff, like really, really good stuff. And so I think to be a differentiator and really accelerate this program, if there's some intention behind it, it could be a really solid deal.
And I kind of want you to touch on too, because we do have a lot of guys that are younger, like from the lessons and the training side, guys 12, sometimes guys 9 to 12, right? So what would look different from like a 9 to 12-year-old versus like a 12 to 18, right? So as they get older, what could a parent expect to be different from like the lifting side?
Yeah, so it's almost drastically different just because as 9 to 12-year-old, you don't know anything about your body. You're still trying to figure that out. So like the biggest thing is just making sure that we have that regular movement coordination with that. Nothing super crazy, just the very basic stuff to get out the way, just so that we're preparing you to get to that next level. So where now when we're 12 to 14, 12 to 15, now, okay, we have our head under, everywhere. Now we can go and get into that basic strength movement and start lifting actual weight. Maybe nothing like, we're squatting, 400 pounds, but maybe we're like, we're doing some, single leg squats, or we're just getting into that movement to where now we're figuring everything out. Now we're moving on to the next one. And now we put all the little pieces together. Now you're clicking with the weight room and on the field piece.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing that differentiates us, kind of going to what Silver Rasm was saying, the cool thing is that it's happening all in-house, right? Yeah. So the good thing is like with Christian, like we...
but you're not just taking tribe guys, right?
No, it's anybody. Yeah. It's anybody. I'm just saying all in-house in terms of like even from the lesson side.
Under the same umbrella.
Under the 1%.
Yeah, so we are all like, the very cool thing about us is that we all kind of majored and studied the same stuff in college, right? And so we all have a passion for movement. We all have a passion for development. We all have a passion for like understanding how the human body works and how to sequence it and use it to get the most out of your body, right? And so the stuff that Sean and I have been studying from a pitching and hitting side, we now have the opportunity to go to Christian and say, hey, this is what we see. This is how we want our guys to be able to move when they swing or when they throw. This is what we want to see. We need you, and we're going to work. We're just talking to him, but like we want to be able to put you in a position to where you understand that, and all the movement that we're working on in the weight room now is translating to that. So it's not just like speed and agility, or it's not just strength. Like a lot of people, kind of like you said, the daycare stuff, like you hear that and it's like, oh, my son's going to go squat. He's going to go do it. No.
Run ladders.
Yeah, he's going to go. And that's not what it is. Like we are specifically using that time as a almost barrier to entry of trying to get guys to move better. Like we now, since we have no more availability in terms of our lessons, right? Yeah. So when people are reaching out, I'm like, hey, for you to train with us to help save our time and just like wasted effort almost, we're like, hey, you need to get in with Christian, and that's your opportunity to get to us, is you have to be able to pass his courses almost, right? His patterning development, because it is so much harder to pattern movements when you're swinging and throwing than if it's in the weight room where we're working at the same exact stuff. We're trying to create the same exact reverse torque type patterns, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to create the same stability on the lead leg. We're trying to create the ability to like counter rotate the upper half and create these certain movements. Well, instead of us wasting time hitting or pitching doing that, now Christian's doing it.
Yeah, and I think there's a component of what I like about it is a component of safety, right? And I think sometimes kids are working out, especially these kids that are, 14, 15, just kind of getting crazy and they're not lifting the right way or they're doing too much or they're competing and they're lifting against somebody who A, doesn't maybe play the same sport that they do, and two, just has a completely different body than they do. So how are you going to kind of manage? I know you talk about the assessment and the fitness, but so what are some of the safety aspects that you'll instill to keep these kids working out the right way?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just, of course, making sure that these guys are healthy all the time. I think that going into that, like you said, 7 days a week is a long stress. So like just making sure that all these guys are correctly doing the technique is going to be the biggest thing. I always say that, if I'm not teaching the athletes how to do it properly and they just come in here and get after it, then, what's it for?
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that when they're done with me and they're going on to the next college level, they already know how everything's going. So now they get ripping and rolling. So now they don't have to be worried about doing the technique improperly or getting hurt or any of that. So
just next level stuff,
yeah.
100%. And I think the cool thing too is, in my head, the way that you're talking, and this is the way that I've always believed it, is I would rather move better and cleaner and actually sequence my body properly, have the correct movements with no weight or little weight at all, than to be trying to lift heavier. Because I don't know if you agree or disagree with this, and you can talk on this. I think guys will get more out of their body, even if they're not lifting heavy weight, if they actually know how to properly move.
No, for
so
sure.
Like you'll see dudes like all of a sudden like, holy shit, like he's actually hinging when he's hitting, or he's hinging when he's loading to throw, and he's just like jumping in velo. The ball velocity off the bat is just harder, and the dude hasn't even put fucking 100 pounds on his back.
Well, I mean, like, look, we're
seeing
seeing it now, though, right? Like, when we start talking more about, like, sequencing and, like, transfer, like, from the hitting side, like, how much energy can we transfer in the barrel with how little effort? All right, if you follow us on Instagram, like, you see all the reels we've been posting about it, and, like, it's starting to be, like, a light bulb to a lot of dudes, right? Where they're starting to really understand, like, hey, how much effort or how little effort I can put in to get it out, right? And for a lot of dudes, it's like now it poses this question of like you see guys that are 175 pounds that hit balls harder than guys that are 240 that could squat 550.
Yeah.
But they move like shit.
But they move like shit.
Yeah,
you actually look at it, it's like, and that's why I think this is going to be so good for the younger guys, is it's just going to promote good movement patterns. And then as we go, as they get older, that's when you start to add the weight on.
Yeah, and we talk 1%. A lot of times it's got to be the right 1%, or else the foundation ain't there. It's the tower's going to crumble.
Yep.
You're going to get hurt. Something's going to happen. So two questions. Coach, the one thing that Sean and Garret said this to our boys, but in your space, Coach Tony said it. He asked the kids, "Did you eat? Did you eat something before you came? Did you? Are you hydrated?" Because if you didn't, you're wasting my fucking time.
Yeah.
Like you're wasting your time and your parents' time because you're not really ready to train. And then two, how important, like all these tournaments that we're doing, how critical is the sleep? Because I know these kids are little, are young athletes, or even you guys are young. You can get up after it. In college, puke and rally, all that stuff. How critical is the sleep component of training?
Oh, it's so important, man. Actually, we haven't even talked about this, but I've actually been creating something in Excel that kind of helps us with our readiness. So it's, as we talked about, our eating, sleeping, our stress level, all that plays a huge factor, not just into strength conditioning, but into baseball as well.
Yeah.
We're out here grinding every day. You're going to get burned out. You have to get those hours of sleep. You have to eat. Like, you have to do all of this. Like, water's big,
Yeah.
So I'm actually creating this component to where we have this maybe when they walk in every day, hey, just fill this out real quick. And now I crunch the numbers in. All right, this guy is on a scale of, 1 through 50. He's at like a 37 for the week. Like, he's not really feeling his best, but maybe like, we can talk to him and see what we can do.
And what's cool too is like just thinking on that is it's like anything else, right? Like your training in the weight room is going to be exactly how it is with us. Like some guys walk in, it's like they move better, but they hit like shit.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like this constant of like, again, we kind of talked about this last week of like, if I can raise my valleys rather to where I'm not so down and up, right? Because player development's not a linear pattern.
Yeah.
When you look at it, right? It's going to be down and up, right? And I think you having that too is going to always be putting the guys in the best possible situation to tailor their lift to where they're getting the most out of it.
And we're not going in deep valleys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To where it's like a guy comes in after a long weekend, slept like shit all weekend, and like his body is just gassed where he's not getting in there and like completely frying his body.
For sure, and like as we talked about actually earlier, it's a huge thing to be like with us in-house because now we're talking and we're being cohesive.
Yep.
So now I know what you want and you know what I want, rather than going to like maybe a daycare and they just do a super general ass lift, and now they come over here and it's like, well, what the hell were you doing over there? You know?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be a game changer. Like I keep saying it. It's in house like that. You will be known. Obviously, the tougher ones, and we will just have to push these guys to communicate with Christian and ourselves. But the guys that are not on all three components, the training, the lifting, the teams, right? When those will be a little bit tougher. But for the people that are all on all three, dude, you have 3 dudes. Gonna be 4 in the fall that are all on the same freaking page on every single piece of your development, to the point where it's like whatever is going on, we all know. We're all on the same page.
And I'm gonna plug this for you guys real quick, just 'cause, again, as a parent, and Garret and Sean and now Christian, with the advent of the 10 and 12-year-old teams coming along.
Yeah.
You know, for the 13s when we started, the idea, that was shared with me by these guys is a 5-year plan. If you stick with us for 5 years, if you don't lose your spot, then, take all the other shit out of the way. But if you stick with our plan for 5 years, you're gonna see, if the goal is 90 or the goal is whatever, we're gonna get you there. And I don't know that you necessarily get that with other teams. Maybe you do. I don't see it much. There's a couple programs out there, I'm sure, that have some focus, but the level of input that we get, it's night and day. And we when my son, who's not he's not some elite athlete, but when he shows up and at school, at high school, other stuff, they're like, well, he's got some smarts to him. He knows how to do this stuff. We can work with him. It's better. And that is a credit to you guys. And now with the strength and conditioning piece all being turnkey, I think you're going to put out some athletes, man.
Yeah.
Well, the communication's the biggest thing because we went. Strength is always huge, right? Getting in the weight room is big. But if you're not communicating, this is just a general overview for the audience. If you're not communicating with your strength coach, like if you have a hitting guy and a strength guy, and they're not communicating on 1, what they want, but 2, what they're seeing, your athlete's almost getting nothing. Right? Because just like whenever we were at the ABCA, we were talking to Cody Martin at the farm system, and he told us a story. He goes, I was working with a remote client, and the guy was moving worse than ever. Right? He was pushing out of his backside, coming out of the ground, and just spinning. Right? He asked him, he said, what have you been doing with your strength guy? He goes, well, he had me make these med ball throws like this. And he goes, well, that makes sense because that throw is promoting you to come out of the ground. He's like, so the biggest thing, and this is what we've been talking about, is just being on the same page, right? With what we're seeing, with what he's seeing, and just keep promoting those good movements, both in the weight room and in the cages and on the mound.
The nice thing from the communication is if Christian might find cues for guys. So, like, we got the picture that comes in when he gets on the mound, like his lead legs. I've just been diving into the lead leg a ton. Because if you watch guys at this age, like, especially on the mound, lead leg sucks. Like, it's just terrible, all right? And so Christian might find a cue for a guy when they're working on some stability stuff or they're working on some one-legged stuff inside of the weight room that he's like, hey, like, he figured it out. Like, this is the cue. Like, he just needs to think this. And then we get on the mound and, like, we might see the light bulbs. Like, that's the cool piece that I'm so excited about right now is the light bulbs are going to start to go like this, right? Like, the turnover and the time it takes for guys to actually start moving forward is going to start to shrink. Like, we're going to get guys in, and we still may have some spread out time of, like, he's struggling, he's trying to figure it out, and then all of a sudden, like, bang. Like, we just start to see that window of development become quicker and quicker down the line with players and progressing quicker.
The feedback loop starts to tighten.
Yep.
Yeah, if you would have seen, now granted the boys were playing up, but if you would have seen how bad our hitting was last fall and we couldn't fucking even see a baseball, But the goal all fall was we're going to work on being better hitters, right? And the results weren't, a couple boys fucking lights out, right? But if you talk in a snapshot of 2 or 3 games this weekend, all the work that was put in the fall was like revealing itself, and we couldn't fucking stop scoring.
Yeah.
And it's not like we were getting walked. It's not like we were getting some bullshit. Like these boys are just hitting the ball. And your third team's lucky. I mean, they're good hitters, right? And now you can take them to the next level. But it's all part of that development that you're getting and that you're sharing. And whether you're coming to play for us or not, irrelevant. But if you follow the 1% program, if you follow that brand, like shit, man, there's some good stuff coming out of there.
Yeah, we're excited, man. We are excited.
It's gonna be fun.
Yep, it was fun. Yeah.
All right, well, shit, we keep on.
Yeah. Christian, you got anything else?
You know, like I said, I'm just excited to get it ready. Yeah, you know, we got a lot of things coming. You know, a lot of things.
What's your favorite lifts for guys to do, baseball specific? You start with hitters.
Ooh, you know, that's got to be my squat. You know, I'm a big squat guy. I think that's like, you know, just a core movement that kind of like everyone.
Front or back?
Back. Got to be, yeah. Yeah, I'm a little more scared of the back or front just because, one, I messed my back up, so, you know, I fucking hate it. But two, I like, you know, if you think about the way you hold it, you know, like the wrist guys, you know, like I tend to stay away from that just for the baseball standpoint, you know. Like I said, talking all earlier, protect the arms at all costs, you know, because that's a huge thing. So,
and like speaking of arms, like when you tell guys like Garret and Sean who are never gonna have arms like me, like what do you, how do you walk them through? You know, look, you can try, right? But
what do you? So did y'all clean?
Sean didn't laugh at that.
Next question. Did y'all clean when you were at UTSA a lot, like with baseball?
Yeah, we did. So. Kind of when I was there, there's been like 4 strength coaches like in the past like year and a half. You know, it's been a big turnover there, but you know, kind of like the general of what we all did was a clean variation. You know, a lot of the guys would go hand clean, power clean. There was one strength coach that did high pulls with them, so that's still kind of a variation of it. But you know, it's that power development that you're going to get from that like is a huge component. Maybe not necessarily, like I said, clean. Maybe we just clean pull from like a block or just clean pull from the ground, like. Something that you do from that clean or even Olympic movement, you're going to really see power from.
Which I think is a big thing because even like, you know, we never, until I got to UTSA and I got with SD, we never cleaned in college. It was always just bench squat and then trap bar deadlift, right? But once we started cleaning and you had that power element of how am I going to get this weight up and catch it, like that, for me at least, was a game changer in terms of just output, right? How much energy can I get into that to move it?
For sure. I mean, like I said, power clean is a huge thing, but we got to first get through the basics of, you know, the squat, deadlift, all that sort, you know. Once you get that done, then we can move into that power component to where you're ripping balls, you know, far shit, send them to the moon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love that. Favorite accessory lift?
Oh, you know, got to get the bicep curls in. Come on.
Yeah.
Got to look good for the camera.
I love it.
Garret, talk a little bit about the giveaway. I know we mentioned it a little bit on the podcast, kind of what's happening there. And then talk a little bit about where folks can go to learn about the 10-12 program and also to learn the 10 and 12 teams in the fall and where they can learn. Are y'all full with the strength and conditioning?
No, not yet.
Okay,
yeah. So strength and conditioning, Facebook, Instagram, email, on our website. If you go to 1%baseball.com, if you go to 1%baseball.com, you can reach me through the email and just like reaching out through that. Send us a DM, message us, whatever, send us an email. If you want to talk about it, give me a shout. My phone number is on there. I'm not going to put it on the podcast, but you can find my phone number on any of those and just reach out to me. We can talk about kind of what it looks like, what it's going to be. If you have any questions on it, I'll put you down on the list and we'll start kind of gearing up kind of ideal times for people in the first 6 weeks in the summer, just in terms of what block you need. And then we'll start pairing guys based off of structure and how big and strong is the kid. You know, just try to tailor it to the age and the size of the kid just so it's clean and it helps Christian out too, just like maintain like some smoothness within the hours of training. From the 10 and 12 side, same thing. Go on Facebook, South Texas Tribe on Facebook. Accurate Baseball Training is the other page on there. You can reach out to me for the 10 and 12 U ages in the fall of 2023. We'll be bringing those teams on. We got a big announcement for the coach of that team. It's going to be a game changer for that. turn it up. Yep. Make sure you tune in. I think a lot of people in the area are going to be
excited.
I think it's going to make some noise, which we're pumped about. It's going to be great. And then the bat giveaway. We will keep your eyes out for this on Instagram. I'll put it on Facebook, but basically everything's going to go through Instagram for this. We are doing a full custom wood bat giveaway. Anything you want, any color, any paint, any engraving, whatever you want on that bat. If you win, you get to pick it. We're paying for it. You're going to have to share the Instagram post, follow the podcast, and like the post. And if you do that and we pick you, you win a free custom wood bat from Phoenix Bat Company.
Yeah.
Phoenix Bat.
So, the last thing I'll say, Christian, I'll let you close it, but I want to say the best looking teams that I saw out there, best uniforms, highest fucking level of play was that T-ball select fucking, they were getting after it.
6U T-ball, bro.
You saw that?
6U.
6U majors.
Bro, yeah.
They were majors. Come on now, you gotta give it back to it. Not double A majors.
Yeah, I was like, ooh. Anyway.
If you're a 6U parent, you do not need to be playing in this NIT. Just so you're not missing shit, I promise.
Way to go, perfect game. Christian, anything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess going back to, kind of what we're talking about, the scheduling wise, we did talk about having, 4 to 8 guys at most in there. So, the big thing about that is, it's really intimate. It's not going to be like you're like one coach to 20 guys where I'm watching on one rack and then, your kid's off doing something else. No, it's like we got these guys looking in. I got my 2 eyes looking on everyone. We're working, so.
Yep, we're excited for it, man. It's going to be good. Next podcast, we actually just had our first person reach out to me and ask for specific talking points. So if the guy's listening right now, go Cubs go. He knows who he is. But he sent us a very long, tailored message of, hey, can you talk about this on the podcast? We'd love some information on this. So if you ever have any questions, any of our listeners, if you have questions, if you got stuff you want us to talk about, shoot it our way. We'd love to dive into it. Just gives us some talking points just on different stuff and go down some different rabbit holes if y'all have any questions. So we appreciate y'all watching.
As always, thank you.
Go try baseball.
Go try baseball.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks, guys.